Hi there folks, I'm Ross Minton, this is Grow Your Own Life, and today I thought I would talk to you guys about the importance of gardening. So without further ado, let's get to it. As always, if you like my channel, please like and subscribe and drop a comment below. I try to read every single one of them and reply, so that would be fantastic. So, the importance of gardening. To be perfectly honest, the importance of gardening can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but this is why I feel gardening is important. And without sounding too hippie-ish about it, it's about making spaces that are little environmental safe havens. And by that I mean almost little microcosms that nature can take over. I've noticed in my garden, just in 2 years of growing wildflowers, planting trees and this, that and the other, and I've got a tiny little garden on an old 1950s council estate in Shropshire, and I've noticed the birds, the wildlife and the insects have just come back to this area. When I moved in, there was nothing. There was the odd grey squirrel and there was the odd blue tit, and that was it, and obviously wasps and a few bees. Now I get so many weird and wonderful insects: bullfinches, yellow finches, jays, hawks. I've had a buzzard. I've had all sorts come to my garden since basically I've started giving nature a home. I've provided water for them in the form of bird baths and a tiny pond made out of an old sink. I've got hedgehogs in the garden now. I've got all this wonderful stuff that comes to my garden on a regular basis. And if we could get every house in the country just to do some little things, we could really help nature out. And nature does need helping out. It really needs helping out. I'll read you a few quotes as to why nature needs helping out. More than 40% of all insect species is declining, and a third are now endangered. A third of all insect species are endangered. And you might think, oh, what do I care? I don't like spiders, I don't like worms, I don't like this, that and the other. They are so important for human life. If all the bees died tomorrow, they believe that about 80 to 90% of the human population would starve to death in around 3 to 4 years, because bees obviously pollinate pretty much all the food we eat. There's a few exceptions, food that doesn't need pollinating by bees, but the vast majority of it needs pollinating by bees. And other insects pollinate as well: wasps, flies, butterflies, all things like that. They all pollinate, they all help out, they all do their bit for our food chain. So once they're gone, we're gone. That's how important it is. And people laugh and joke about these things, but by using pesticides, you might think, oh, I'm only killing, the insects in my garden, I'm only killing things in my garden. But you equate that to everyone in your street using pesticides, then every farm in the country, and then every farm in the world using pesticides, and before you know it, just your insects in your 3 metre by 3 metre garden being killed is every insect in the world being killed. A study in Puerto Rico found that 98% of its ground living insects had died out in the last 35 years. 98%. And we're not talking, about 10%, 20%. 98% of their insects have died out in the last 35 years. And that's just because they did a study to find that out. Now, I don't know of any such study that's happened like that in the UK. If you know about it, please drop a comment below. Just because the study hasn't been done doesn't mean we're not losing insects. They did a study in Germany about flying insects. They've lost 82% of their flying insects in the last 27 years. That's Germany. Now, the previous one being Puerto Rico, a lot of people go, oh, it's the other side of the world, it's a tropical environment, what's that got to do with us? They probably use chemicals that we don't use in the EU or use in Britain and blah, 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 blah. She's Germany. Germany's only a few hundred miles that way, or that way, depending on how you're watching this video. They abide by EU laws like we currently do in the UK, and they've lost, I've got to look at it again because I can't believe it, 82% of their flying insects. 82% in the last 27 years. I'm 36 years old, and this is the God's honest truth. Because I've always been an outdoorsy kind of person, I've noticed a decline just in my day-to-day life. And I'm sure you have too if you think about it. I remember as a kid your mom would give you an ice cream and you'd take the ice cream outside, and I guarantee you within 30 seconds something had come to eat that ice cream. Normally a wasp or something like that. And you remember the days of batting away wasps, you know, while you had a sugary can of Coke or an ice cream, this, that and the other. The last couple of years, I don't think, if ever, I've been attacked by a wasp very much when I've eaten stuff. I've been down my allotment. I've been on family days out around the National Trust. We've walked around with ice creams and cans of Coke and this, that and the other. We get the odd wasp. And that's it. When I was a kid, used to get loads of them. I remember barbecues at my grandparents' house, and my granddad would catch wasps, kill them and throw them away when they come to the food, especially like when we were kids. So we'd be there eating on the table outside. The wasps would fly over. He'd wait. He'd grab a wasp, throw it away. And by the end of the meal, there'd be probably 10, 12 dead wasps in the flower bed that he'd caught with his hands. This summer, eating in my grandparents' garden, I struggled to remember a time that we were attacked by a wasp. And I can't remember that for the last few years. With my kids, we've had the odd one when we've sat there and had a sandwich that's come over. But nothing like when I was a kid. Nothing. I remember sometimes we'd have so many wasps that my nan would say, right, that's it, we're eating inside. And she'd pick up all the stuff and she'd walk off inside. And we'd all go and eat inside just to get away from the wasps and the flies and this and the other. It doesn't happen anymore. There's so few wasps about, they just don't bother us. Why? Because they're not there. They're not there because they're being killed out. And if that's just wasps, think of everything else. The bees, the flies, the beetles, the butterflies. Butterflies! My daughter gets so excited when she sees a butterfly. Why? Because they're not that common anymore. When I was a kid, you just walk outside, flower, butterfly. Flower, butterfly. And I'm only 36. Butterfly, butterfly, butterfly. We used to catch them as kids. Not to hurt them, but we quite easily get a butterfly, hold it in your hands, admire it, let it go, kind of thing. Very rarely now do you see butterflies that prolific, unless you've got particular trees like buddleia and stuff. They're just not there because they're being killed off. Moths as well. As a kid growing up, I remember every night we'd have 4 or 5 moths flying around the light in the bedroom because they'd snuck in from somewhere. It rarely happens now. You get 1 or 2 moths a year in your house and it's a big deal. It used to happen every day when I was a kid. Every day. Why? Because they're dying out. Why are they dying out? Because of pesticides. Where's the proof? Germany, 82% of their flying insects they've lost in the last 27 years. How many have we lost in the UK? That is the importance of gardening. It's important that we make these little microcosms to give nature a chance. There's other things we can do. We can stop using pesticides. We can do all those things. We can lobby our MPs, our parliaments and this, that and the other and try and do it that way. But until then, until people start listening, the one thing we can all do is just make a little microcosm for the insects and the wildlife. Get an old sink. If you don't like recycling, go and buy a little old pond and put it in the corner of your garden and put logs over it and bricks or whatever, just so there's water there for things to drink out of and things to lay eggs in and other stuff. You don't need something deep that the kids are going to drown in and this and the other. You can have a wildlife pond which is only yay deep and full of logs and things like that. Leave a corner of your garden for wildflowers. Don't be so clean and tidy and scoot everything away and put down astroturf and tarmac and concrete. Leave a little bit of grass, leave a little bit of a hedge, leave something and put some native flowers in. And that's a big deal. It is a massive deal. I've noticed this. My grandparents love their garden. Use my grandparents for example. Just their garden's amazing. They grow a lot of garden centre plants. A lot of them are not British native species, but they have loads of wildlife. They have loads of native plants too. Okay, but some people, they have everything in their garden is from a garden centre and from a foreign country. So our insects, it's not that they don't really know what to do, but it's not their native environment, so they're less likely to come into your garden and live on a fuchsia or something. They want some daisies, or they want a thistle, or they want a native poppy and some cornflower and sunflowers, or whatever those plants are they want. And it's not in your garden because you've tidied it all away to look like an immaculate garden centre, show garden. But they need these species of plants to help them survive. And so I've been doing that. I've been sprinkling more native flowers, more wildflowers. I've been leaving the hedge a little bit long at certain times of the year. I've been leaving the grass long in certain places doing all that just to help, just to do my bit, just to do something. And I've noticed a huge difference. I've had longhorn beetles, I've had bee flies, I've had various hawk moths, all of which I never saw in my garden until I started putting these native wildflowers in. And if you live in a block of flats and all you can fit in is one tiny little pot of flowers, then just make it native. Just sprinkle some native flower seeds in there, get the poppies, the daisies and everything to grow, and I guarantee you something will find those flowers out and visit them. Even if it's Mr. Bumblebee or Mr. Masonry Bee or a honeybee from a local hive, something will find it out. It won't be long until the word spreads and you'll get some butterflies and moths and other things that you've never seen before will seek those flowers out and make their little home in there and lay their eggs and secure the next generation of that species. And that's what we've got to do. 75% of the world's crops are pollinated by insects. 75%. Now go into your supermarket and take 3/4 of the food out of there every day, every week, for every year, and then see how well you get on when people are fighting for food. Think about that. Think about everything. And it's not just fruit and vegetables. People could sit there and think, well, I don't really eat that many fruit and vegetables, so I'm not bothered. How do you think we get meat? We get meat by farming it. We farm animals by feeding them on fruits and vegetables, or grains, or barleys, and other things that are pollinated by insects. So if you like eating meat, look after insects, because insects pollinate the food that your meat eats. Again, 75% of the world's food is from pollination by insects. And if you have no interest whatsoever in any of this, and you think to yourself, I don't care, it's not going to affect me, I'll be long dead, I'll be this, I'll be the other, or I don't like insects, they're horrible things. Well, think about this as well. Fast breeding pest insects, your flies, your blue bottles, your cockroaches, all those things that you hate in your house that you try and get rid of, they will thrive in this situation because the things that prey on them will die out. They will carry on. So if you don't care about anything else, care about the fact that we're probably going to get more of the insects we don't like because we're not looking after the insects we do like. If that's not a reason to just grow some wildflowers in your garden, then nothing is. If you don't want cockroaches, start growing wildflowers, okay? And give the things that eat the cockroaches a chance of eating more cockroaches, or give the things that eat the flies the chance of eating more flies. There are so many reasons that affect you, why you should garden, why you should do anything to help insects. So just go out there and do it. That is the importance of gardening for me. It's just creating a safe haven for nature and giving nature a chance. You only have to look on old pictures of towns and cities all over the world. Look on your town, for example. I don't know where you live. Go and find old video or even old photographs of what your town was like from the 1940s to the 1960s. And have a look at all the green spaces and the farmland and the hedgerows and even just wasteland. So much life on wasteland where brambles and bracken and heather and everything else grow. And now look at it. It will have been built on, turned into factories and car parks and concreted and tarmacked. And there's no nature there. But you can change that. You can change that by putting some wildflowers in a pot by your front door. Just do it. Just do something, please. That is the importance of gardening, in my honest opinion. We can all do something. All of us can do something. I've been Ross Minton. This is Grow Your Own Life. Please subscribe and please have a think about what you can do and the importance of gardening.